Now we're going to move on to Sarah-Jane Paine. She's an Associate Professor of Medical and Health Sciences at the University of Auckland, and she's going to talk about how understanding extreme weather events are impacting rangatahi and whānau wellbeing. Over to you, Sarah-Jane.
Tēnā tātou, ko Sarah-Jane tōku ingoa no tūhoi ahau. Thank you for your time today. I'm really proud to be here on behalf of the Growing Up in New Zealand longitudinal study. So for our contribution to this important kaupapa, what we really wanted to be able to support is an understanding of how the extreme weather events have impacted young people and their whānau. So our cohort at Growing Up in New Zealand in 2023 were aged 14 to 15 years old, and we knew we had families living in the areas that were primarily affected by the extreme weather events. So we really wanted to leverage the relationships we have with young people and families, the data that we've been collecting over the first 15 years of their lives, and the systems that we have available to be able to stand up a survey and to collect this important wellbeing information rapidly for the purposes of sharing it as soon as possible. So for our extreme weather survey, we designed 2 questionnaires, one for our young people to complete and one for their mother or primary caregiver to complete. We collected data between August and early September last year. And I want to thank the Chief Science Advisors who met with us to help us understand what some of the pressing issues were when it came to wellbeing impacts in the regions of Te Tai Tokerau, Tamaki Makaurau, Te Tai Rāwhiti Gisborne and Te Matau Maui Hawke's Bay. Thank you. So in this slide, we've just provided a snapshot of some of the key findings that we thought might be interesting for everyone this morning. So in our study, over 50% of participants reported that they didn't receive enough information or advice about how to prepare for these extreme weather events. We saw across our cohort that there were significant disruptions to essential services lasting several days. But what we've thought was really important was that the impact of those infrastructure disruptions differed depending on the regions in which the young people and their families were living. So essentially, whānau living here in Tamaki Makaurau, the duration of impact was often shorter than for those families living out in Northland, Gisborne, Te Tai Rāwhiti and Hawke's Bay. We asked a range of questions of these families around their need for support and services, and then we also asked them of those service needs, what did they actually receive? And so importantly, we saw quite high levels of what we call unmet need for support services, and these support services covered financial needs and supports, their need for healthcare and medical care, their access to food and a range of other essential services in the days and weeks following these extreme weather events. One of the areas in Growing Up in New Zealand where we've collected very robust longitudinal data is in the area of mental wellbeing. And so we wanted to understand how these extreme weather events impacted how young people felt from a mental wellbeing perspective in the months following those 2 weather events. And what we could see was a pattern where young people who said that they were affected by the extreme weather events, whatever that meant to them, they tended to also report poorer mental health outcomes in terms of the level of depression symptoms, anxiety symptoms, and also some poorer sleep quality. We also wanted to share that across our survey findings, we can see, and this was one of our primary goals, we can see that rangatahi, that young people require targeted support, and there are specific areas in which they want to receive some better sort of youth-friendly information. But what I thought was also interesting for us to highlight is that young people aren't just recipients of support and care following these extreme weather events. We have information to suggest they also want to support other people in their communities. They want to care for and support young people who across New Zealand who might be going through similar situations of disruption and despair, but they also wanted to be actively involved in the sort of recovery and future response planning in these particular communities. And so the quotes that we've provided in this slide just give you a little bit of insight into how young people think about where communities of support could exist, and this could be particularly important for schools to know about, but this idea that they also want to be out there supporting others to recover and to feel well following these extreme weather events. Next slide, please. In terms of the outputs and data that we've created, all of our information is available to the public. So a primary objective was to provide qualitative and quantitative insights into the human experience of Cyclone Gabrielle and the Auckland anniversary weekend flood events. So all of our report and information is already available on our website, and we've also produced some regional snapshots of key findings for the areas that were most impacted by Cyclone Gabrielle, and they're available from our team. The data set that we created off the back of those two young people and primary caregiver surveys is already available for researchers to access to answer other really important questions that might be coming through based on your own experience undertaking research projects through this platform, but also future questions that are going to crop up. And so, for example, the longitudinal impacts of these two extreme weather events is something that growing up in New Zealand could uniquely contribute to Aotearoa when we're thinking about stronger, more resilient future response planning. The data sets are available free for use via our existing data access process at Growing Up in New Zealand. And we also believe it's really important to give back to young people who are so generous in their contributions to growing up in New Zealand and who completed these questionnaires in very large numbers. So we created with support from a clinical psychologist who was part of the study, what we call the Uncivil Defence Guide, which is really a resource for young people to give them some support strategies, some tips and tricks on how they may be able to manage their emotional response following an extreme weather event. That Uncivil Defence Guide is available on our website for anyone to download, to share with your communities, to share with young people that you know of who might find that very useful. And we were also very proud to partner with Toi Matarua, which is a rangatahi Māori-led research organisation who live and work within Hawke's Bay. And with the support of the funding from MB, we were able to partner with them to create a short film about Moko Boys, which is a rangatahi-initiated support system where young people are supporting typically kaumātua, older people in the Hawke's Bay area, and creating those really important social connections and supports following Cyclone Gabrielle. And that short film was released at the end of 2023. So thank you again to MB for the funding, and particularly to the whānau of Growing Up in New Zealand who make all of this possible through their ongoing support of our study. Kia ora.